Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth, also known as the Continuum Chronicles. And as always, I'm your host, Chris Kent, the Game Master, or GM for short. And this is the halfway point in our series based on the X-Men six-player arcade game made by Konami back in 1992. So that said, let's dive in. Previously on X-Men, Magneto kidnapped Kitty and the professor and took them to Island M. The X-Men went there and were ambushed by Magneto and fell into a hollow, cavernous area. Here they fought Wendigo and were running low on hit points. They healed some, but not enough. That's when the professor contacted them via telepathy and urged them to keep on going. He guided them towards a cave entrance where they would begin their search for Kitty within. So now we get to the main plot of today's story. The X-Men enter a weird cave system, and it is massive. The path they are on is well traveled by reptilians and lit by torchlight. Looking off the path to the right and left, the cave just seems to go on forever. But the further away you see, the darker things become. And the ceiling here is very low. The entire area is full of stalactites and stalagmites, giving the feeling of being inside the very jaws of the earth. Not long into their journey, the X-Men are attacked by more of those monsters that Nightcrawler dubbed Leech Men. The same weird screeching creatures that popped out of the mud by the waterfall. The heroes are attacked by two more Hulkbuster Sentinels as well, who shoot rockets at them. As before, the heroes defeat all the enemies in this area, but Cyclops and Dazzler are knocked out. Storm uses the MRD med kit and those weird yellow and blue capsules we saw earlier. The reaction of someone knocked out who takes one of these pills is similar to a person's reaction when they smell smelling salts. They have a rude awakening, but they're up and going again. Speaking of things that are rude, some more Sentinels appear. And these Sentinels look an awful lot like Iron Man. They bear his classic red and gold color scheme. They even seem to have his repulsors built into the palms of their mechanical hands. They fire emerald energy blasts at the heroes, and these guys are a problem. But the X-Men still fight them and win. As before, the X-Men are low on hit points after this fight. So Wolverine says he'll take point while the others catch their breath. Wolverine leads the way down the path and gets attacked by more reptilians. Like those encountered earlier, these are wearing the same dark green costumes, but these reptilians have pale green scales instead of orange scales. Nonetheless, Wolverine cuts them down to size and notices some weird metallic cylinders hidden behind a thick rock formation. After the fight, he searches the immediate area and more machinery is found hidden behind rocks. Dazzler asks what's going on here, and Nightcrawler says he has no idea. Just then, a secret door hisses open, and more red and gold sentinels walk out. The X-Men fight the robots only for a sled vehicle to show up, with even more sentinels on it. Hulkbuster sentinels launch rockets at the heroes, and the good guys are getting overwhelmed. Since the elevator was big enough for all those sentinels, the X-Men who are still awake drag the knocked out members of the X-Men into the elevator. This forces the villains into a bottleneck situation. Wolverine is healed and in full of hit points, and Colossus is still going strong too. So it gets to where they're the only two awake, and they punch and claw anything that approaches the elevator. After a while, all the robots are dead. The knocked out heroes are loaded onto that high-tech green sled vehicle. Neither the elevator nor the sled have any buttons. So Colossus guesses that the robots must use something akin to Wi Fi to work that equipment. Since they can't take the elevator anywhere, Colossus pushes the sled through the cave. They pass more of this gold equipment built into the cave. One machine kind of looks like a big golden eyeball, and its glowing green retina follows the heroes as they move. As Colossus, as Colossus pushes the sled, its tank treads make an awful sound. They weren't designed to be pushed like this, so the motor is making loud noises, alerting enemies to their presence. More of these green reptilians show up and breathe fire at Wolverine, who in turn says, "Dragon men, huh?" He slashes at their throats, disabling their breath weapons. They gasp for air as Wolverine finishes them off. Another sled shows up, and this one is the same color of yellow that they use to paint construction equipment. Unlike the sled from earlier that was olive drab, this yellow one can hover. So after Wolverine and Colossus deal with the robots, they move the X-Men onto the hover sled. And this one is way easier to push. Quieter, too. It's quiet enough that the heroes hear squeaking sounds. Colossus says it sounds like bats, but Wolverine's senses are better than those of Colossus. So he says, "Those ain't normal bats, Petey." The bats attack, but they aren't made of flesh and blood. They are mechanical bats. Wolverine says, "Of course it'd be more robots." Then he says, "You know the routine," to Colossus. So Colossus picks up Wolverine and throws him at the bats. It's the fastball special. Wolverine hits the largest bat and sticks his claws into it. He slashes at it, while smaller bats dive bomb Peter, who swats them out of the air with his super strength. After the big bat explodes, the heroes continue on. They walk onto a massive elevator where a bunch of red and gold sentinels are. The sentinels command the elevator to go up before they see Wolverine surprise attack them from behind. As soon as all the robots are dead, the elevator stops at its destination. Colossus pushes the yellow sled off of the elevator and says he hopes they find Kitty soon. Wolverine says, "Me too, bub." No sooner than he says that, the duo are attacked by more leech monsters and dragon men. There's an alcove here, which may serve as some sort of elevator controls. And on the wall here is another one of those med kits. Wolverine uses the med kit to get his teammates up and at it again. He says, "Nap time's over, ladies." More Sentinels show up, shooting repulsor rays and rockets at the heroes. Nightcrawler quips that this is a rude awakening. The X-Men fight their way through wave after wave of Sentinels. They leave the cave area and are back on the surface of Island M and can see a tropical storm outside. Nightcrawler asks Aurora if this is her doing. She says it is not. Cyclops says islands get hit by tropical storms fairly regularly. As tons of Sentinels approach the X-Men's position, a lightning bolt strikes one. Colossus transforms back into his non-metallic alter ego, not wanting to be a living lightning rod. He asks Wolverine if he wants to go back into the cave since he's got adamantium on his bones and adamantium conducts electricity. But Wolverine just says, "Nope, there's Kitty." Ahead of them, past the Sentinels, Kitty is being held captive in an electrified cylinder. So the X-Men fight their way through the Sentinels. Colossus puts in extra effort to save Kitty. Even in his mundane form, he punches Sentinels and destroys them alongside his teammates. When they get to Kitty, Nimrod, the ultimate Sentinel, reveals himself. Cyclops says now they know why the island was being assimilated from the inside out. Nimrod doesn't bother monologuing or explaining himself, though. Instead, he just immediately tries to kill the heroes. Nimrod is a huge problem for a variety of reasons. One is if you get close enough to him, he shuts down your powers, which is why Kitty is still stuck in that cylinder and not simply phasing through it. Wolverine gets close, and his healing factor is neutralized. So Nimrod starts to beat Wolverine down. Wolverine still has his claws, though. The field that Nimrod emits doesn't make physical objects cease to exist or anything like that. So Wolverine cuts into Nimrod's pearlescent white crystal armor. Cyclops tells everyone with a ranged attack to back up. Once they are outside the range of Nimrod's neutralized power, Cyclops and Dazzler shoot Nimrod. Cyclops has amazing marksmanship, partially because he can literally hit anything he's looking at. Dazzler's role is less than dazzling, however, as she almost hits Wolverine while his healing factor is still off. Storm yells at Wolverine to get out of the way. She can't make a shot with him in melee. Wolverine disobeys a direct order, though, and growls that he's got this, but he doesn't. Wolverine is knocked out. On the bright side, once he's laying on the ground, it's safer to shoot the tall villain with ranged attacks. So he gets lit up by Dazzler, Cyclops, and Storm, and after a while, they seem to destroy him. Cyclops says he'll be back. Then we get to the epilogue. Kitty is released from the cylinder that the villains had her in. She tells the X-Men that they need to rescue Professor X. So together, they all head out. And that was it for this game session. We had a good time playing it. I hope that you had a good time listening. If so, remember to smash that like button, hit subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, all that jazz, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.